2021 was a great year for new Masters of the Universe because we got not one, but two brand new shows, one of which obviously was Revelation, and the other one was CGI Netflix's Reboot, which surprised me as for being as good as it was. I honestly watched it expecting to not like it all that much, and the designs kind of threw a lot of people off, I'm pretty sure. But they really grew on me over the course of watching those 3 seasons of the show, and I really, really liked those designs overall. I was so close to picking up some of the standard toys that they were coming out with until I heard they were coming to Masterverse. How's it going, everyone? Deceptibot9 here, and thank you all for joining me here on the channel. Before we get too deep into this, go ahead, if you like what you see, leave me a like. If you want to see more and stay tuned for all the future content that I have planned, go ahead and subscribe as well. It means a lot to me. And if you want to follow me on any of my other social platforms, you can find me on TikTok at Deceptibot9, on Instagram at Deceptibot9Reviews, and on Twitter at Deceptibot9. So, if you haven't figured it out yet, we are talking about these two guys, the Masterverse, CGI, He-Man, and Skeletor. Oh my gosh, I love that we have these two designs now in the Masterverse line. It's so nice, and it's such a cool change of pace for the Masterverse line to give us these unique body shapes like this when all of the other ones have been, fairly standard for the most part. So seeing these are amazing. I am having so much fun with these figures overall, so let's go ahead and take a closer look at these two guys. Alright, so here we are with a closer look at CGI He-Man and CGI Skeletor, giving you kind of a 360 full view of the figures themselves, and you can see all of the accessories that they come with as well. These figures have done tremendous jobs at capturing the art style and proportions from the show. And at first I was a little worried that with their upper bodies being so huge and their lower bodies being very small, that they were going to have some problems with balance and weight. But honestly, I have not had problems posing them and balancing them really at all. They managed to make it work in a way where the proportions and everything line up so that they stand just fine and they pose just perfectly fine. I am really, really happy with how these two turned out overall. I think they look really, really great. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at some of the details. We're going to start with He-Man first. All right, here is a closer look at the CGI He-Man's details here. We can see that head sculpt is just straight out of the show. It looks so good. I love the way the hair looks. It looks great all the way around there as well. Coming down here to the upper body, we get the Power Sword logo on the chest with the gray, the sort of dark blue going on there. Here on the right above, or the ab section right there, same sort of detail. Down here on the belt, we get the kind of the gray skull logo that we see in the show on the belt. The arms here, you can see they look very nice. There is a little bit of muscle definition. Obviously, there's not much in the show, so it's very accurate to how he looked in the show. We've got his nice little gauntlet bracers here on the wrists. The hands have, oh my gosh, focus on the man. We've got on the wrist there, or on the top of the hand, nice little detail. Coming here to the back of the harness here, you see there's a little peg hole. I'll show that off. It's for the sword here in a minute. Back, nothing much going on here. I get to see a little bit of the boots coming back around to the front. We get some nice yellow highlights going on in the boots, and the feet are just all gray, but there's some nice detail work there. And the sword here is so nice. I love this design for the Power Sword. I think it's really, really cool. I love how big it is. I love how wide. I just wish there was the yellow glowing detail going through the sword, but I think honestly, just by itself as well, it looks super nice. And you can see that, He-Man just overall, he looks really, really nice. And he's standing great. He's standing just fine. It replicated just perfectly out of the show. He looks exactly how he did in the show. This is so amazing. I'm so glad we have these figures now, and I really want them to make more. I'll talk about it more at the end, but I love this. I'm so sold on this. Now, if you're wondering, let's go ahead and tackle Articulation really fast. It's exactly the same as all of the other Masterverse figures' Articulation. It is standard. It is incredible that they're able to do that on a design like this. The head on a ball joint goes all the way around. The hair might get a little bit caught in the harness, but it's no big deal. You can look down about that far, up not very far either. Arms go all the way around on the joint. They go out about that far. They swivel at the bicep there. They have the typical Masterverse double elbow. I mean, he is pretty big, so you can get a good bend out of it, but it is also a little restricted just because of how big his arm is. You can twist at the bracer if you want as well. The wrist hinges or swivels and hinges out back and forth like that. You can see he's got the nice diaphragm cut, which will let him crunch side to side or backwards, forwards a little bit. Waist swivel right there to get that waist turning around. Legs go forward a fairly decent amount. They are a little bit restricted by the loincloth here in the front. They go backwards about that much. They go out not a whole lot. There you go. They go on a kind of a clickety ratchety, but they don't go out all that far, to be honest with you. They can go out, just be careful because it's a little bit clickety clackety, one of those not as smooth perhaps as I would like that to be, but legs also swivel at the thigh. They've got a double knee here in the lower leg with a great bend going on there for how tiny those legs are. Swivel at the ankle, and you can also pivot them down as well. So, I mean, this guy is chock full of articulation. You can get him in lots of poses, very reminiscent of the show. And as we saw there in the turnaround, he does have alternate hands, so you can fist up both of his hands if you want. You can have open hands for both to try to get him to hold the sword with two hands. It is a little hard because the arms don't really let him go, forward into the front all that much, so you might be able to squeeze them together, but you can try. But I don't know how possible it is. But just like all the other Masterverse, when they include alternate hands, it just pops right out, and you just pop the other one right back in. So alternate hands there, looking good. I prefer just to have the fists on this hand because I think it looks better than an open hand, to be honest with you. And as we saw earlier on the back, if you want to remove the power sword from his hand, which I will show off here, the hand actually is kind of molded in. It's got this little bump that without the sword in it looks a little weird. The other one has it too, so that's probably why I don't like it so much just without anything in it. But it actually is because the way the hand is molded, it's molded to fit the groove of the sword handle, but then also hold it down so it doesn't kind of like flop around while it's in the hand. But as we saw earlier when I was showing off the details, if you look on the back, he's got a big peg hole in it. And on the back of the sword, there is a big peg. So you just put the peg in the peg hole, and there, just like that, you can have He-Man wielding the sword just on his back, just in a standard neutral pose. Now, the one thing I do wish this He-Man would have come with is perhaps an alternate screaming head, because sometimes you want to get him in like a powering up position or a powering up stance pose, and his neutral expression just doesn't really work when you're trying to get, some sort of powerful yell pose out of him. But overall, I mean, I am just very, very happy with the way this He-Man turned out. I think he looks absolutely amazing, just, one for one with how he looks on the show, and they packed all the articulation into it. Really, really pleased with how he turned out. But let's see how he looks compared to some other He-Man figures. Here's Masterverse CGI He-Man with your standard Origins He-Man. I wish I had the Origins CGI He-Man to show off next to this one, but I don't really want to drop $150 on that 4-pack just for that one figure, because that's basically the only one I want. So, standard He-Man it is. Here he is with his other Netflix counterpart, the first He-Man that we actually got in the Masterverse line, Revelations He-Man. You can see these two they look solid together. This is probably the weakest. The Revelations one is probably the weakest He-Man out of all of the He-Man that we've had so far, but still pretty solid. here is CGI He-Man with new Eternia He-Man, who I do have a review of if you want to go check that out. This guy rocks. Here's CGI He-Man with the 40th anniversary He-Man. This one specifically is the Comic-Con one. Do also have a review of that if you would like to go check that out. And here is CGI He-Man with our latest addition to the new Eternia line, Battle Armor He-Man, who, again, I also have a review of if you want to go check that out as well. And as a big group shot, there is all of the He-Man that we have got in the Masterverse line so far, not counting Faker because he's technically not He-Man, but there you go. Nice group shot. All right, that's enough about He-Man. Let's go ahead and talk about Skeletor. All right, let's get into the details on Skeletor. This head sculpt looks absolutely amazing. It's not really coming out on camera, but there are two little, you can kind of see them, two little red dots there in the eye holes of the skeleton head, obviously, but he looks great. I just want to preface, this is probably one of my favorite Skeletor designs of all time. I love this design. It's so fun. Coming down here, we see this nice green peeking out on the chest. That's presumably knows Havoc magic coming through. This big skull, like snake skull on the chest, Havoc skull. I guess it's the same as his staff right there. Yeah, same thing. That's actually kind of cool. I just noticed that. I watched 3 seasons of the show and I didn't notice that until just now. But you get the big spiky parts coming around the shoulders, of course, covering this is supposed to be part of the hood, but painted in a different type of purple. Coming around to the back, same thing, little armor piece here, connects all the way around with the hood. The hood looks great on the back here. Coming down, just get this nice blue texture going on. We get chains going around his waist. Coming here, this side, obviously, same thing with the arms. They're the same arm pieces, just, colored in a different blue for Skeletor. You can see the horns of the Havoc staff, piece of his chest coming back around there on the front with a Snake Mountain belt to counteract He-Man's Castle Grayskull belt. Coming down this side, this arm has the skeletal hand, which I think is a really cool design aspect as well. This side obviously has the normal Skeletor hand. The Havoc staff we'll go ahead and look at really quick while we're here. So cool. I love the way this one looks. I love the green coming out of the eyes and the horns. I love the openness right there as well. It's in a kind of dark purpley, purpley type color. And then the sort of what color is this? Mahogany? That's not mahogany. Another purple, different type of purple. Anyway, you get it. It looks great. It has a chain coming in here on the side. We get the loincloth looking great there. Nice purple, again with the purples, different color purples everywhere. Big toes and big feet on the Skeletor. So as you can see, this Skeletor, he looks so nice, so intimidating. Again, it's one of my favorite Skeletor designs. It's so cool. Articulation on him is exactly the same as He-Man, so we don't really need to cover it. Major differences is that the head is on a ball joint, but of course, because of the hood, it is a little bit restricted in how far you can get it to go side to side or up. He goes up a great amount, unlike He-Man. It doesn't really go down that much there. Nothing else. The arms can be a little hindered by the shoulder piece. You can't really get it going much farther than that. They still can go out a great amount, but they do also rotate at the wrist piece here. So the skeletal hand twists there. This one twists at the actual, unit, and they twist the wrist themselves. Nothing else. He's got, ankle or shin rotation right there as well, and all the feet. So everything is the same here on Skeletor. Now, as for accessories, as we can see, obviously, he's got the Havoc staff, which we looked at. You can also, if you would like, you can break the Havoc staff into 2 pieces, removing the top part. I don't know why you would. I'm not sure why they actually did it that way, but you can certainly do that. This Skeletor, unfortunately, Masterverse Skeletors, as much as I love all of them, can never escape the fact that the Havoc staff is usually a little bit too heavy, unless you put it just right in the pose, or else it'll make his wrists flop around everywhere. As for other accessories, As you saw in the turntable, we do have, of course, just a fisted up regular Skeletor hand and a fisted up skull hand. I kind of like leaving the open one out on this guy because it makes it seem like he's going to perform some type of magic or something, but it has the same amount of cut on it as the other side. So if you wanted to put the staff either in this hand or try to make both of his hands hold the staff, you certainly could do that. It takes a little bit of work. Again, just like He-Man's, I bet if you sat there and kind of finagled with it for a long while, you could get it into a position where Skeletor is holding it with both hands. But honestly, I like the way it looks enough without it. Plus, I think the skeletal hand just looks super cool by itself. So, just like He-Man, of course, let's go ahead and show off this Skeletor with a bunch of other Skeletors. Alright, here's CGI Skeletor with, of course, the Netflix Revelations Skeletor, who's not bad overall. It was our first Masterverse Skeletor, first foray into it. And I mean, he looks great. He still is a lot of fun. I do like the Havoc staff as well. So here's our two Netflix Skeletors. But of course, there is a third Netflix Skeletor. That is, of course, the Deluxe Skelegod. This one is a lot more fun than the standard Skeletor. I still really like this one a lot. I think he's really, really neat. And this Skeletor did have a kind of version of this in his show. I don't know that we'll ever get that in Masterverse form, but I think it would be kind of neat. Here's CGI Skeletor with new Eternia Skeletor, who I love so much. Again, there's a full review of him with the He-Man one if you want to see that as well. And here he is with the 40th anniversary San Diego Comic-Con Masterverse Skeletor, who, again, tied with He-Man, I do have a full review of over on the channel. And he was my favorite. He still might be, but this one is a very close second. I love this one a lot. You know what they say, there ain't no party like a Skeletor party. And here is all 5 of the Skeletors that we have seen in the Masterverse line so far. Each of them are so fun and so unique in their own way. I love every single one of these figures. They're all really, really cool. All right, that's going to do it for a closer look at the CGI He-Man and Skeletor. So let's go ahead and throw it back up to me for my final thoughts. So my final thoughts on the Masterverse CGI He-Man and Skeletor are, I think they're great. I think they're so, so good. If you are a fan of the show, if you're a fan of these designs, you're probably going to want to pick these Masterverse versions up because they are great. The fact that they are able to take these designs, give them the same amount of articulation as the standard Masterverse figure, plus look at how big they are. They are big, big boys, yet they're not deluxes. They're just standard, standard packaging versions. If this was Hasbro, we all know that these would be deluxes and they would be charging ridiculous amounts for them, but these two are great. I absolutely really love them. I like the He-Man a lot more than I thought I originally would. I love the Skeletor too just as much. Just maybe one day we'll get over the fact that Skeletors are going to have loose wrists with all of their Masterverse Havoc staffs. Alright guys, that's going to be it for my full in-depth review of the Masterverse CGI He-Man and Skeletor. So go ahead and let me know what you think of these figures down below. Do you plan on picking them up? Have you picked them up already? If you have, what do you think of them overall? So with all that said, thank you guys for watching all the way to the end. I really do truly appreciate it. As always, I have been your host, Deceptibot9. Thank you all for joining me, and I'll see y'all later.